going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Wonbyone Podcast. I'm your host, Wonbyone. Today we're talking about the mindsets, habits, the systems that drive success both on and off the court. Today's guest is somebody I've been wanting to talk to for a long time. I'm excited to have him on here, MD or neurotologist, Dr. Kendal Stewart. I wanted you to come on here and introduce yourself. How are you doing?
Sure, I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me.
Tell the people, who are you? What do you do? Just give us a little bit. Give us a little bit of a
History.
background.
You know, I'm an old guy now, so.
Tell the people. Give us a little background. Who are you?
So my background is in ear, nose, and throat and neurosurgical techniques that basically involve operating in the skull base, which is an area kind of at the bottom of your skull. But that's really not necessarily what I do now. So, the funny thing about being a neurosurgical trained ENT is the most complicated issue is deciding when you need to operate, when you don't need to operate. So we actually figured out that we could use a lot of significant objective tests to actually identify when people needed to be operated on, didn't need to be operated on. And so we're able to kind of look at the brain and how it responds to different information coming in. Now, it turned out that information we initially used to kind of decide when to operate on people when they wanted tumors and things out. But it turned out in athletes, it was a great avenue for one of our biggest problems was knowing when athletes had concussions and when they were going to return to play and when are they going to tell us the truth about how they're really feeling. And as you know, me being an ex-athlete, you being an ex-athlete, athletes want to be on the field, and a lot of times they tend to not tell you the truth. And so we learned that we could put them through a bunch of tests that could actually tell us how good their brain was receiving information, how much their concussive injury actually affected their nervous system and how it was being fed, and whether they were ready to go back to play and perform at their level and not risk further injury. Now that eventually led us into all types of genetics, enhancements. My background is also in biochemistry and cell biology, and so I've always been interested in maximizing the ability of the nervous system to recover from any type of injury. And it kind of led us down a path that was really interesting. We've been working on for about 20 years, and we can talk all about it, and we can talk about it any way you want to, but the long story short, we need to have some objective measurements for athletes. Athletes love objectivity. They love how fast you are, how high you can jump. We love objectivity when knowing that they're at risk for hurting themselves. And we also love being able to help them and give them the proper nutrition and supplements and everything else to get them to recover and perform at their best.
On that topic, so
Yes,
you started in surgery, right?
Yes, sir.
Then we moved to functional. Where did we go from surgery?
I'm actually a functional doctor. I'm a professor for one of the major functional institutes. So because of my background in biochemistry, I'm really interested in healing as opposed to just covering stuff up with a medication or something like that. And so it turned out that I was really good at not only surgery, but I was really good at recovering people because I prepared them for the surgery, and that actually started benefiting us in all areas, especially in athletic function, athletic recovery. The biggest risk, especially in pros, and you know it well, is getting hurt. I mean, you're really putting your lifestyle and your paycheck at risk, and you gotta have a way to bounce back, and you gotta be prepared for it when it happens, because you just don't want to risk your career.
So I've had, for everybody who's been here, you guys know this, I've been plant-based for 9 years now. So 9 years without meat. Now I eat a little bit of eggs and maybe some cheese here and there, but 5 surgeries, right? Yeah. So before, my first surgery was ACL. This was sophomore year in college. And then I went, I had 3 surgeries in 2 years. Then I went 10 years without having a surgery. And then I had a surgery 2 years ago again, ACL. You talk about preventing. What does it look like? What does that preventative look like?
Well, here's the biggest issue. If you're dealing with ACL, you're not necessarily just dealing with the knee. You're dealing with the postural control of the body and the ability to actually perceive movement in abnormal situations and recover from it. So we actually did a real interesting study back in 2003 in Dallas. We tested all the Dallas Independent School District women basketball players because there was a big rash of ACLs and it happened to happen around their period. Okay. So I got brought in because we had all these fancy ways to look at their balance and their coordination and their eye timing and everything. And I was blinded to all those tests, and I put them into 3 major risk groups: low risk, moderate risk, high risk, according to what I saw related to their balance. And then I was blinded to the results, and it turned out we had 58 ACLs over the next 2 years. Okay. And it turns out that 50 of those 58 were in the high risk group of the women. So we were able to see that postural control and coordination and ability to recover from being thrown off balance or put into high stress situations on the knee, we were able to predict who was going to get into trouble and who wasn't. Make sense?
Wow.
Now, they wouldn't let me take it to the next level, which was I then wanted to take those girls that were high risk and actually nutritionally stabilize them, put them through significant postural exercises, eye tracking movements, things like that. And that did not get performed, which was disappointing to me, but it then carried us into a whole nother area where we started looking individually at the University of Texas athletes and how they were posturally controlled. And I don't, you'll be very surprised that if you start paying attention after an athlete gets struck in a concussive-like injury, they tend to sway in the plane they got hit in. So that's what gave it away for us. In 2002, we started noticing that if a football player, a basketball player, volleyball player, whatever, if they got hit at the front of their head and we took them to the sideline and made them do balance tests, they would sway front to back, where if they got hit in the side of the head, they would sway side to side. Now, obviously, forces that damage the brain are one thing, but we also have the inner ear, which is a very delicate organ that can be thrown off. So we realized at that time there was actually 2 types of concussions. There was a cerebral concussion where you damage your brain. The other one's called a vestibular concussion, where we actually damage the plane that we got injured in. Now, here's the problem. If you're playing sports, you're having postural control, and anterior posterior or front to back problem is a much different force on your knee than a force in the lateral. You understand? So we could predict when ankle injuries were coming, when lateral collaterals versus ACLs were risk. And then it really got funny because we didn't want them to go back on the field if they weren't resolved from that, because then or the court, because then you're just going to blow out your ACL. So we were able to use that test to tell us when you were ready to go back to play. And I'm sure I made a lot of athletes mad, because they couldn't get back on the court. I've heard a few of them cuss my machines, you know what I mean? So,
how important is that for athletes, though? I mean, I'm thinking about it, and obviously all the injuries that I've been through, these are all scientific terms, but it makes a lot of sense to me, being somebody who's dealt with it, right? Athletes who are dealing with... Go ahead.
This always makes, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
But it always makes sense to athletes because athletes are in tune with their body and their postural control means something to them. I mean, you can tell when you're an athlete how you're positioned in the air. Remember, part of our nervous system has to do with proprioception or awareness of 3-dimensional space. And when you're moving, let's say, off the floor, in basketball, for instance, that's the part of the nervous system that's giving you where you are in 3-dimensional space, because you don't have any touch and feel. So all we got is our eyes, our inner ears to tell us where we are in 3-dimensional space, and our muscles. You get up off the ground and your muscles don't have anything to touch. They kind of have to work together, and that's how some guys can contort their body and still make that basket, and other guys in the gym who aren't playing pro ball can't do that. You know what I mean? So
is this what you consider genetic guided nutrition?
So here's the deal. In biochemistry, I'll tell you that biochemistry in my mind is the way it's a language we use to describe what the Lord did to essentially feed our cells and make our bodies develop and recover and everything else. Mm-hmm. Now, with that being said, everybody is unique individual genetically. And what's important is if I wrote out all the biochemistry processes, I mean, you would be looking at 200 or 300 things that your cells probably need. So if I'm guessing, I'm probably not going to get it right. And I'm pretty smart at it. I've got a lot of experience.
Right.
But
Okay.
you don't want me guessing.
Right.
So if we swab your mouth and we look at your DNA and we've identified the genes that are really important for feeding your mitochondria, for helping your connective tissue recover. So basically in recovery, you got to accomplish 5 things. You got to have inflammation control, which is sometimes the hardest.
That's what
Okay.
that's what we're going to come back to, especially for athletes.
Absolutely. So you got to control inflammation because you're creating it every day, and that's called working out and training and playing and everything else. The second thing is you got to deliver glucose to your cells because that's how your mitochondria or your batteries run. Okay. The third thing is you got to have all the supporting cast, like certain types of vitamins and nutritional elements as the building blocks, as cofactors to make everything run. Then you've got to have pretty clean cells because those batteries can get clogged up with chemicals and other things, and some people are good at getting rid of them and some people aren't.
Sure.
And then lastly, you've got to then feed an overload to athletes because you're taking your body to performance standards that are much higher than just a base cellular level. So the way we describe that is what we call epigenetics, meaning if you sat on the couch, your body adjusts to what you're doing on the couch. But you start training every day, thank God we can turn on all these genetics and make us perform at the level we need to perform for whatever level we want to, compete at.
It's hard listening to you say that. Being a high level athlete, I kind of understand those things. You got to take care of your sleep. You got to make sure you're eating right. You got to make sure you're doing your recovery. You got to make sure you're doing your rehab. You got to make sure all of those things come into play. And so when we talk about at the highest levels, that's what those guys are doing, right? And the people down here don't really understand, and they think, oh, it's just I can get. I don't have to do it today. I don't need it today. I'll be okay. And what happens is after a duration of time, well, you break down.
Yeah, it's not their paycheck.
And so I'm primarily dealing with athletes who are, going into college, trying to go to college, trying to make the professionals, and they're right at that point where this is critical. It's critical, and I can't tell it to them, and that's why I brought you here, and hopefully they can pick up some things that you're teaching. Is like this is real, and this is what you need to optimize your body and your play for the highest level. And so, somebody like you who was talking about that, I'm trying to bring it down to a 4th grade level for them, a reading level where they can understand what are we doing, what does this actually mean for me?
Yeah, so let's go there. So the problem is that in all the nutrition we take in, we absorb a certain form, but in different parts of the body because the body's made of water and fat. And water and oil don't mix.
Right,
you understand?
Right.
And so many times we have to take something that we absorbed as a water-soluble vitamin and convert it through a series of steps or enzymes to make the right form to help our brain or our nervous system because it's covered in fat. So let's take folic acid. Folic acid is a water-soluble vitamin. Really important for making dopamine, making serotonin, making mitochondrial energy, healing your nervous system. Really important, but it's water-soluble and the brain's covered in fat. So how good do water and oil mix?
Not good.
They don't.
Okay.
So you have to convert it. Now, what we do in genetics is we look at all of those steps and see how good you are at converting it individually because you don't want to do what everybody else does because we're all genetically different.
Sure. Step 1.
And so when we swab your mouth and we are able to look at each of those genes, I can tell you whether you need to take a special form of folic acid or not to enhance your ability. Now, I will tell you there's about 6 million of those genes. Okay? Now, we're lucky enough, I parsed through 10,000 of them and found about 120 that really mean something in recovery of the body.
Okay.
Now, we're going far and beyond that with AI now because we're creating some new abilities. But using those 120 genes, I could tell you exactly what you needed and exactly what you don't need. Because I'm telling you, you and I both know college guys are 18 to 25-year-old athletes, and they are not responsible yet necessarily unless they're highly motivated.
Nope.
So I have a rule in my practice that for dudes, I don't give them more than 5 things to do.
Okay.
Now, ladies, I can give a lot of them because they're pretty compliant. You understand?
That's real.
But
that's
dudes,
real.
now here's the deal. We solve that by not only looking at what they need, but when you build supplements to overcome what those weaknesses are, the packaging is a lot of the price. So I wound up putting a whole lot of things in a single capsule. So I didn't have more than 5 bottles, even though I might be giving you 20 things.
Fair enough.
Makes sense?
Fair enough.
I'm sorry, but it's the truth, dude. I'm
Fair
telling
enough.
you. I was
Fair
the same
enough.
way, man. Come on.
So let me ask you this. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so what we do is genetics tell us what you need, and just as importantly, they tell us what you don't need, and you don't need to waste your time or your money or your effort on them. Otherwise, you're listening to the dudes in the locker room saying, I mean, this stuff's good. Why don't you take it and try it?
Yeah, it's so hard. You know, being an athlete myself, doing all the things that I know I should be doing, some things I know I should be doing I'm not doing, trying to, tighten the loop. But
Yeah.
it has just, some of the things I feel like, maybe it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not the only one. And I try to operate at a high level, and I try to make sure I'm doing the things that I need to do and being responsible. But even for some of those things, I'm just like, But at the same time, when I do those things, taking my supplements or whatever the case may be, I can notice a difference. And so being, like you say, athletes being in tune with their body, some of the younger athletes not being so in tune with their body, just trying to share with them, okay, here's a list of things that you, on standard as a cookie cutter, this is a good place to start. Where do we start?
So here's the deal. Different levels between high school, college, especially D1, and then all the way up to the pros. You take a step up every time. You get up to the pros, 5% of difference makes massive. So here's the deal. I call it threshold. And what it really means is if you're nutritional, and I'm talking about the nutrition in the cells or available to the cells.
Okay.
If you're living right here and you overtrain or you have a rough stretch of a lot of games and you deplete that, all of a sudden you're in a low performance state.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can recognize where you're really weak at, and then we can boost the threshold where you have more of that than you really need, because here's what I know about myself. Did you know more money I make and more money I put in my bank account, the more money I spend?
Well, that's how it normally works. Yep.
So from a nutritional standpoint, at the highest level of whether it's college, high school, pros, if I can give you threshold of extra of the right nutritional elements you need, you can go through some rough stretches of training and traveling and all those other things and never get into a crisis situation, because this is where you wind up getting hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that being said, there are many ways to go about it. Okay? You can go to a doctor who's gifted in genetics and other things. You're probably going to have a tough time finding a lot of them. I've trained thousands of them, but it's not easy. Okay?
Right.
So I have a new company coming out called Helix Revolution.
Okay.
And Helix stands for DNA. It's direct to public. There are small genetic sets where you want to know how you detox, you want to know how your mitochondria work. You can buy these little panels, and they're kind of self-explanatory. And we built the supplements to answer the questions for what you need and what you don't need.
You built the supplements.
Yes, I built the supplements too. I've been doing that for almost 20 years. Yep.
Wow.
So, but you want to make sure you're getting a supplement that's also clean, because supplements, most of them come from China and India.
Well, especially if you're professional. I mean,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah, you're responsible for what you put in your body.
Yeah.
I know
It's got
that's
to be it's got to be certified for sure.
So we were certified when I was at University of Texas, which with some coaching changes, I I decided not to work with some of them. But
Sure.
here's the deal: we were certified by the NCAA to give our supplements
Wow.
to the University of Texas.
Wow.
There was a couple that they wouldn't certify because
Sure.
they had colostrum and stuff in them. So you got to be a little careful about what
Yeah.
you do. But you certainly don't want to go to GNC. And I'm sure you were warned about that in pros.
And get whatever.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even to this day, all the stuff that I take goes through my agent. You know, it has
Right.
to. It has
Well,
to be
so
certified.
that's what we call GMP level supplements. They're pharmaceutical or professional grade. They can only list on the label what's absorbed, so not the amount in the supplement, what's
Oh,
absorbed.
okay.
And so I'll have to argue
Oh,
with the
wow.
chemist if I want 600 milligrams of something, that supplement may have 1,200 milligrams in it, so I can get 600 in your body.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because remember, nutrition is recipes. God makes recipes. He puts
Mm-hmm.
everything works together. He does.
Mhm.
I mean, it's kind of like how much. Well, if you put twice as much sugar in the bowl when you're making a cake, how do you fix it? You got to put twice as much of everything else to fix it. So it's not really
Okay.
complicated, but you kind of got to know what goes together.
Yeah.
And then you got to make sure that you're not overwhelming people, because the problem is some of this nutrition you can feel when you
Mhm.
enhance it. Some of it you can't. It's about baseline functionality. Like if you take a multivitamin, you're not going to feel anything. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And the CGMP supplements are actually certified for purity. They've already gone to the FDA and made sure that they would qualify for purity if the FDA ever took over the supplement business. So,
Okay. So you landed on my a trigger word for me. You said cake. So let's get to my favorite topic. All right. Let's talk nutrition.
yes, sir.
Let's talk nutrition. Let's talk supplements. Let's talk.
Sure.
Let me hear it, because this is your expertise. This is your zone, right?
So
The
we have
food and
some other
nutrition.
we have some other genetic tests that can tell us exactly what nutritional dietary form is best for your genetics.
Mhm.
Okay. I will tell you that a lot of it has to do with racial, meaning
Okay.
descent patterns.
Sure.
Meaning people in Africa married people in Africa before we all moved to the U.S. You see
Right.
what I'm saying? People in
Right.
Scotland, from where my family is from, married Scottish people.
Absolutely.
So we concentrated genetics in the old country. Now we get over here and everybody's realizing everybody else is beautiful and all types of intermarriage and stuff. And to me, it's great because it's making my job a lot simpler. Okay. Because I really got to tackle people of all racial backgrounds and all social backgrounds and everything.
Yeah.
So we do have a test that can tell us what fats are good for you, what type of exercise is essentially best for you. Now, many top athletes already kind of know that because they know their bodies.
Sure.
We can also tell whether you need to be carbohydrate rich, whether you need to be, non-insulinogenic, so you're not driving a lot of insulin production. But that's a simple way to start for an athlete. So you want to feed your body appropriate to the way it genetically functions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's really important to the athletes, though, is you and I both know that it's not the workout, it's the recovery that gets you the gains. Okay.
We need to put a stamp on that, please. That statement right there.
Yeah. And so, the biggest problem we had at the University of Texas when we had these young athletes come in is teaching them how to train the right amount and not overtrain, because, when you're young, you think every day hitting it is the right thing to do. And
Then you end up with 5 surgeries.
yes, sir. Well, and I'll be honest, I know a lot of pro players from all kinds of sports, and that's a small number.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there you go.
I'm going to
Well,
tell you, you're lucky.
yeah, and with me, a lot of it was overtraining, but overtraining is a large part of it, but also, like you said, recovery. I tell guys all the time, it's not about how hard you can train, it's about how well you can recover. Right? You can train super. So for me, I'm at a point right now, you can train really hard today, but then what does tomorrow look like?
Yeah, so let me take you to the complicated part. The immune system, the way we describe it, and this is what I do in medical care too, because I take care of all types of neurologic diseases, are inflammation based.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about on switches and off switches. Now, the on switches tell us how aggressively we turn on inflammation. But the really important part is how quickly can you turn that inflammation back off.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is God has redundancy. So we have three major systems that turn inflammation off. We have the JAK-STAT system, the tumor necrosis factor system, and the toll-like receptor system. You don't need to remember that.
I don't know what you just said.
I understand. But the thing is, the way we turn off that inflammation naturally, or even with some prescriptives if we need to, is completely different depending on which of those systems you have a problem with.
Okay, right.
So if you don't have objective information, it might be the entirely wrong thing for you to do.
Sure.
Now, it probably won't hurt you if in nutrition, because nutrition is not very dangerous necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Understand? But the problem with what used to happen is if we had an off switch that was broken, people would go over here and limit your diet, limit your training, try and never to set this off because we couldn't turn it off. Well, that was a disaster. Meaning that that's just not going to work for a guy who's trying to be a top college athlete, pro athlete. Yeah, you just can't play that way.
Right.
But when we were able to see it and we were able to develop these nice natural ways to turn off inflammation, the quicker we turn it off appropriately, now we're not suppressing your immune system, we're just turning it off appropriately, the quicker you recover.
Can you share some secrets with us, some tips?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
So we have all kinds of beautiful natural things that have a great ability to do multiple things, and they're things you've probably heard about.
Sure.
A lot of them are called polyphenols, like resveratrol, quercetin. Do you understand those types of things that come from fruits and vegetables? Now, the problem is we've hybridized a lot of our fruits and vegetables. I'm not going to talk about GMOs. I'm going to talk about hybridization.
Okay.
Which means, I'll tell you a funny story. My little son, we went to SeaWorld. He was 5 at the time. And we got some watermelon, and he came running back to the line and said, "Dad, the watermelon's bad." And I said, well, but bring it back and I'll return it. I said, "What's wrong with it?" He says, "It's got black seeds in it."
No way.
Okay, you understand?
Yeah.
So we've made fruits and vegetables to look prettier and all that type of stuff. And we've taken out some really good stuff that really helped our gut and our nutritional elements, like anti-infectives, anti-inflammatories. And so some of the things we use, depending on what we see, are just simple combinations of these high-power natural food things that actually help us get rid of oxidative stress, knock down inflammation control. And those usually also have an ability to turn on detoxification systems like glutathione, which removes chemical toxins. And it also has an ability to turn on genes and turn genes off. So the natural things are really more powerful than people think. It's just not what you hear from your regular doctor.
And it causes a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
It causes a lot of confusion because now people don't know what to eat. They don't know where to go. They don't know what to do.
Yep.
You know, they have too many options, and it's just they information overload.
Well, my recommendation would be to get a genetic test and know exactly what's right for you. So we actually have a test that's available in my clinic that will not only tell you the diet that's right, but then we'll give you recipes that are on the diet. And makes it much easier for people to follow that's best for them. Now, the problem is you can get those types of things, but you need somebody who's pretty professionally smart to tailor it to what your needs are. So one thing's knowing the information, but then tailoring it to what your lifestyle is. Completely different. And so, yeah.
And a lot of times, you know, I can speak for myself. When I didn't know, and that's partially why we're doing what we're doing, is because I went through a period of time in college, or when I didn't know, I wasn't as knowledgeable as I am now, and it's just trial and error.
Yep.
And with that trial and error comes a lot of failed attempts, right? A lot of injuries. Right. And so for me, all of my injuries, I can tell you exactly what I was doing, what I was eating, how I was lifting, how I was sleeping during those injuries, because it was trial and error.
Right.
You know, I was trying to squeeze out that little 1%, and it's like, well, okay, maybe I need to mess with my diet a little bit more. So for a long time, I mean, chronically, I have under-eaten during times of high intensity because I was messing with my diet, messing with my body, and I wasn't aware. And I know I'm not the only one, and that was one thing that I really struggled with, was, trying to figure out the level that I need to be at, the supplements I need to be taking, the intake of diet to optimize my recovery, not only recovery, but time on the court as well. And so, like I was saying, a lot of that, not knowing with the hybridization and the GMOs and all that stuff, people don't know what to eat, where to go, where to get their food, and just end up, fending for themselves and going through trial and error like myself. So,
Well, let me point out something simple. Your dietary changes, you mentioned 1% that you were looking for. If we do it genetically and do it right and get the right supplements, you might be talking 3 or 4%.
yeah,
You understand?
yeah,
So with diet and methods, you can maximize what you got. But all of us have genetic weaknesses. I have never seen anybody anywhere that doesn't have some that we can address. And if we overcome those, and these are really just simple weaknesses where your enzyme doesn't convert one form to the next form very well as of what your parents gave you. So if we can just bypass that and put it in right, then we may be able to get 3 or 4% out. And
Right.
for a pro, 3 or 4%.
It's game changing, life changing,
Oh, huge.
career changing.
Yeah. But it also has to do with not just feeding the system, but neural twitch, processing speed of your visual system and your visual eye-hand coordination and
Yeah.
everything else. And so remember, there's just a whole lot of layers to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's talk to the parents. There's a lot of parents that's going to be watching this, listening to this, trying to get, hear what their sons or daughters need to be doing to optimize their time on the court, recovery.
Yep.
What do we need to tell them? What do they need to know about inflammation, about sleep, about energy dips up and down? What do they need to know about all of those things? How do they optimize their sons or daughters, their child's time on the court or off the court?
So I'm always going to say, just because of my background, that it's going to be genetics so that you know how the person's built. And you and I both know these days, I practice within 5 miles of 3 past state champions in football in Texas. So I don't have to tell you how serious it is down here.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, I know that these parents spend a lot of money on coaches, a lot of money on outside influences. So you want to take the time to get your genetics, however you get it, but you got to have somebody that understands how to interpret it and pick what you really need and what you don't. And I kind of like to describe it like, one time my daughter talked me into a $5 cupcake at the mall, and I was really disappointed because the cake didn't taste good. And then a couple of weeks later, we went to a bake sale on vacation, and I had a sloppy old Betty Crocker bake sale cupcake that was delicious, and I ate 3 of them, So the whole point was, sometimes we get so caught up in the little things that we forget about the cupcake. And so the genetics always make sure the cupcake is really good, the icing's good, and then if you want to get really carried away, you can get to all the toppings and the sprinkles and everything else. So
Okay.
I'm sorry for that analogy, but that's kind of how it is. So you want to go with genetics because you want to know what's right for your child or your
Sure.
athlete or yourself. You have to be selfish. You don't care
Okay.
what's right for the next guy. Okay?
All right. So then, with that answer, somebody's listening to this and they hear that and they're like, okay, Doc said that we need to get genetic testing. I don't know where to go to get a genetic testing. Where do I go?
Sure.
What do I do?
So, I'm going to tell you, Helix Revolution will be up and running very quickly. And I did that to go direct to public because here's the thing. Fagron, which is, I'm a medical director there. We have great tests. They're very complicated. You then have to have a professional to read them. And so I decided to come up with something that's very simple, can be interpreted fairly easy, and is broken down, and it's fairly low cost. You're not talking about thousands of dollars here. You're talking about a few $100s.
Okay.
And then what you really want to know from the genetic test, you don't want to know what it is. You want to know the answer to how you fix it.
Exactly.
And that's
that's all I care
the
about.
Solution, yeah. And so that's the problem with what we had with Ancestry and 23andMe. They gave you the genes, but they never gave you any answers. And so we really built some answers for you to make it simple and also cost effective. And now there are other places to go. We have another company called Extending Me. So that's more based in overall health for, neuro longevity and stuff like that. So there's different sources, but what I would tell you is you have one or two options. I have a podcast called Coffee with Dr. Stewart.
Yep.
You might want to listen to me.
Yep.
We just talk like we're sitting around chatting about different subjects, but it's kind of get you thinking about natural healing of the body and natural performance and how we get the best out of what you've got. Okay.
Okay.
And so that's where I'd probably steer you right now, because it's going to be lower cost.
So when can we expect Helix? What's next?
Helix
when is
will
that?
be out, I'd say early August. Okay.
Oh wow! By the time they hear this, probably then.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably so.
All right. So,
so
go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I'm just telling you that that's the biggest problem, because the way a lot of genetics is run is they want you to go through a provider, which makes sense because you need a professional to understand it. But you can simplify it down to the level where you get really targeted and you get 90% of the information in simple, easy to understand language. And if you really want to just go all out, you can make an appointment with me and I'll go over everything you wanted to know. But that's not necessary in most people. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Well, it'll be necessary for me. Got to get in contact, man. This is something I was excited to have this sit down with you. I'm huge. I mean, I understand that your body, as an athlete, this is what makes you money. You have to protect your body. The best ability is availability.
Yep.
Right.
Yes,
and so being available, being able to play, being able to do what you love to do. I mean, there's nothing like it. And I understand somebody that's been out for so long, had so many injuries. I understand how important this is, how important the nutrition is, how important your genetics are, how important the supplement, how important all of that, the blood work, all of that stuff. So blood work is not something that we touched on, actually.
Well, I want to mention something new. We actually have a brand new test. So I do a lot of brain injury work following car wrecks and athletics. We actually have a new blood test that's available very quickly. It was FDA approved, where we can actually see if you actually had a true brain concussion.
Okay. Through a blood test.
There's a blood test. Now you need to do it within about 72 hours.
Right.
Okay, but for all those parents who worry about their kids having a concussion and the doctor doesn't want to take a chance, so they just tell them they did, and we can actually now measure and find out if they actually did have a true concussion.
I mean, I've had a few pretty bad concussions myself. I remember one in college where I got taken out. I had a dunk and I got undercut and just landed backwards on my head.
Right.
Blacked out. I fell on the court, and then the next time I woke up, I was on the bench. And, a terrible concussion. Had a few of them, but we're seeing the numbers of concussions. I feel like they're increasing. Or are we understanding them differently? What's the case there?
I will tell you that I've probably seen more concussions than pretty much any doctor you'll ever meet. I've been doing it for a long time, seen tons of concussions, which is not typical for doctors. They don't see a lot because they don't really like them.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
What people call concussions, I can tell you I won't call a concussion unless I have proof of that concussion, meaning I don't just guess.
Sure.
So we have balance tests. We have other tests we can do to see if your brain got concussed, and we can be very accurate at that. We have a blood test that we can use to see if we actually damaged it. But the key to that too is having those things normalized before you go back. If you've had a concussion, we then got to do something to recover from it, so you come back quicker and you come back just as strong as you were before you started.
Sure. No, that's important. God, that's super important. Doc, this was great. I enjoyed this conversation. Like I said, I wanted to have this conversation just for the athletes to understand how important what you're doing is and how it relates to performance on the court for guys trying to get to that professional level, the things that they need to do, and hearing it from not just myself, but from a certified MD. So, man, tell us where can they find you? You mentioned your podcast. Where can we hear that podcast?
That's on just about everything now, so you can find it just about anywhere. We also have drkendalstewart.com, which is my website.
Okay.
They're kind of all linked up. You know how it is these days.
Yep.
So you can find me on all those. And really, I just want people to be educated about it because, you know, you'll be surprised that, like some of the things I told you today, most people don't even know they're available. And a lot of things coming down the pipes. We're getting much more sophisticated at it. And you always want to prove it. And, you know, I don't know, Obi, if you got kids or any of that yet, but when you get a kid and your kid gets hurt, you think you care about yourself, you're going to care about your kid even more.
No kids yet, but God, I can only imagine. Imagine.
You're a good-looking dude. You need to find. You got a wife?
On the way. Well, hold on now. Not on the way, but on. In the near future, hopefully.
Good-looking guys need to have beautiful children with beautiful women and have a good time.
You know, just praying for a healthy baby when the time comes.
You got a lot of time. Yes, sir.
All right.
So,
all right. Well, thank you so much for coming on here. Where are you located right now?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. Okay. Yes, I think I'll be in Austin in a couple of weeks, actually. We should.
Why don't you come on by. Call me.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
All right. Well, Doc, thank you so much for coming on here, sharing this with us. This was a great experience, but I wish you the best, and hopefully we'll see you.
Yep, you will. I'll let you know. Okay? All right. Thanks, Obi. I'll talk to you later.